Hey everybody, welcome back. So let's do some more Visio basics. All right, let me close this file and reopen it. So when you go to File, Open, excuse me, those are files that are already created. So File, here's those templates that we looked at before, and I think previously I opened up like basic flowchart US units. It usually will open a stencil that has something to do with that also. You can pick another template. Detailed network diagram is a template that calls out a stencil of network objects. So these are some of the stencils that I barely made mention of in the last video that we haven't used yet, like this computer, this server. Click it with the left mouse key, drag it out here, drop it. There you go. So now you can resize that object. Remember we talked about resizing it. Again, if you use the corners, it keeps the proportion correct of the object. If you use one of these, oh, you know what? That's funny. Okay, so you know what? These pre-built objects, I think, retain their proportion no matter which object, or excuse me, which sizable thing you use. If you use the ones on the sides or the corners, it does the same thing with it. So I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to compare that to a square. So with a square, if you move the sides, it doesn't resize the whole thing proportionally like a corner does. So that's a little bit different. Now I'll show you something about a stencil. Go back to the pointer. Remember, by the way, when you're kind of clicking and dragging something, you need to select this pointer tool. Now you can click and drag and bring it out. Now let's make it bigger. Now I want to talk to you about grouping objects for a moment. Let's start by doing a few squares and go back to the pointer tool. If you click with the left mouse key, drag over all of them, now they're all highlighted. If you hit the Control G on your keyboard, again, what I mean by that, I think you've a lot of you all know this already, but just for those that don't, you have to hold the Control key down, G. Okay, that just grouped those objects together, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. So let's go back over there. So we had highlighted these objects. Okay, you can move them when objects are highlighted. You can move them around together. Oh, look at that! The diagram's getting bigger. We already know how to fix that. Go to Design, get rid of Auto Size. Now you can move them over, and it doesn't auto size the paper. Okay, so these are individual objects in and of themselves. However, when you highlight all of them, they get treated as one. You can move them around. You can tilt them, you can grow them, okay? So you can proportionally size all of them together when they're highlighted. But when you click off of, and the only reason you were able to do that is because you had highlighted them. You had highlighted all of them together with your left mouse key, drag across them. And so let's get back over there and look at that. And so you're able to, on the fly, treat them as one object. Now, if you want them to remain as one object, this is what I was talking about with the Control G keyboard hotkey. Control G. Now look what just happened to them when I hit Control G. You can still treat them as one object as if they're highlighted, but now when you click off of them, they always are one object. You see that? You clicked off of them, and now they're always one object. They stay that way, and you might want that. There are times when you want to take a bunch of items, Control G, group them together, and you want them to stay that way. All right. Other times you don't, and that's when you highlight them, like I just showed you, and then you can momentarily treat them as one. Okay. So let's get back over there. Let's look at that. Control G. Now, to make them not one object, it is, let me check myself on this. Yeah, okay, I got this right. So it is, it's G, Control G groups them. I wish it was Control U would ungroup them, but it's actually Control Shift U. So Control Shift and then the U key. You see that? Some people will use two hands to do that. Control Shift and then the U key. All right? So let's get back over there. Excuse me, I just dropped my keyboard. So they are one object, and Control Shift and the U key ungroups them, and now they are back to being their individual objects. Okay? So I'm going to do that again, and this time I'm going to show you maybe a different way. Highlight them, right click on them, and look at that, group. Go over here to group. Now you have grouped them. So what you're going to find is you have some people that never want to take their hands off the keyboard. They're faster when their hands are on the keyboard. Like myself, always working in routers and switches and firewalls as a network engineer. The more I can keep my hands on the keyboard and know exactly what I need to do with hotkeys and things like that, the better I am, the faster I am. Other people prefer the mouse. They prefer to, right click with the mouse and work in a graphical environment. And when you're, and that's fine. And so you'll find that in Visio, there are ways to do hotkeys as well as mouse pop-out menu options, and they're one and the same. It's just two different ways, more than one way to skin a cat, basically. So there's more than one way to accomplish the same thing. So let's get back over there, and we're talking about grouping. And so I just showed you, you could right-click on that. So Control-Shift-U ungroups them, highlight them, right-click the mouse key, group them, and now they're grouped. Now, right-click the mouse key, and now grouping's not highlighted because it's already grouped. So now you can ungroup them. And there you go, all right? Another thing I want to tell you about is I think I told you that if you do something and you don't like it, say for instance, you delete this one and you delete this one and you delete this one. Control Z keeps a history of things, and so you can reverse what you have done. But what I haven't told you yet is Control Y is the opposite of Control Z. So if you undeleted them by Control Z, you can redelete them with Control Y. Control Y, Control Y, Control Y would get rid of those boxes again. So let's try this. Control Y, Control Y, Control Y. See that? Control Z undoes what you've done. Control Y will redo what you've done. Okay? So that's a few things there I wanted to share with you. All right, we got to fix something right now. First of all, I need to be true to to answering the question here. How can I draw this in Visio, this picture here? But secondly, I can't sit in front of that picture for too much longer, trying to look like I got probes coming out of my head like Frankenstein, and I'm trying to put some hair on top of my head. So we got to fix that right now. Let's get through this real quick so I can erase that, because I'm not sitting in front of that anymore and looking like that. All right, so here, let's go back to our original diagram, or we can just pick up where we left off. How about that? Yeah, so here we are, and let's look at, first of all, these stencils over here. We talked about how you can collapse them, and I may have shown you how you can move this out or in. Now, the way that you access these stencils, some of this stuff is gonna differ from one version of Visio, and then there's that stinking thing back there. Some of these things are going to differ from one version of Visio to another. I'm going to show you in the version that I'm running here how to do this. If you go to View, so you have these menu options up here. Go to View, go to Task Panes, and you can see what's highlighted is the block in orange. That orange block is highlighted, so that one is selected. If we unselect it, you see the stencil sidebar is gone. Go back there, it's no longer selected. So if we select it, it brings it back out again. Now, if you want to search for an item, let's click on here, and I'm going to put the word router in here. It's searching shapes for different types of items that might fit the description router. Okay, and so there we go. There's a router. Let's pull that one out. Let's drag that one out. Again, remember, oh, you know what? Interestingly, I didn't have to highlight the pointer tool. So sometimes, I'm going to delete that. Sometimes you don't necessarily need to select the pointer tool. And I guess one of those cases is in the case of a stencil. So if you float your mouse over it, it highlights. These are specific pictures of routers. Okay, physical route. These are logical pictures of routers. So let me pull one of these out, and we will look at this in a moment. So this is how you access different types of stencils and how you search for them. Okay, I'm going to highlight all that, and I'm going to delete those. I'm going to look for a cloud. So yeah, I'm typing the word cloud in here, hit enter, and let it search for objects that fit the description of cloud. Some of you might think, how do you know what word to type in there? You know what? I don't. I just type in what has something to do with the types of items that you're working with. Whatever. There's various Visio stencils that are for an industry like design or engineering or building construction or just various things. And by the way, you can download stencils from vendor websites, not Microsoft Visio, but like Cisco or Juniper or just any kind of manufacturer or vendor that's out there in some industry may produce stencils that are custom stencils that have really nice drawn out elaborate pictures that you can import into, and it's not an extensive process to import a stencil into Visio. You know, you just get I think it's a VSS file, or I'm not really sure what the stencil file is called, but you just, open it up in Visio, and then it just it has that big sidebar that we've been looking at with, then it would have vendor specific or whatever type of stencils over here, and they're quite nice to work with. I might show an example of some of those later on, but for now we are going to try to draw this picture with a cloud and a few routers. And so let's look at how to do that. We have our cloud here. Let's drag that out. Some of them come with a word inside of them. Double click on it. You can delete it if you just want an empty cloud. And so now we have those circles that we need to draw. Again, we're looking at these circles here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles. And we want it to be symmetric. So we also have a circle over here and a line and a few lines. And so what I want you to do is I want you to imagine this diagram cut in half. And I'm going to show you something really nice. When you're doing something that has symmetry to it, there is a really nice way to be able to do this in Visio. You only have to draw half of the picture. Then you copy those items that you've drawn, group them, flip them, and then you have the totality of what you wanted. So I'll show you exactly how to do that. It's quite nice, saves a lot of time. So we needed some circles. So to get the circles, go up here to the drawing tool, pick ellipse. Now to draw a perfect circle, you want to get the cursor right on the junction on the grid. You want to get it right on the corners between squares. Click the left mouse key, drag to where that you can almost see there's two cursors that lay over top of each other. The one in the back is the one that is snapping to the geometry of the grid. Okay, so get that cursor that's floating in the back to sit right on the corners of the squares, and you'll have yourself a perfect circle. Let up on the mouse key. Now you actually can just click with the left mouse button and then just drag the corner like we've learned previously, and you will maintain the perfection of that circle. All right? So you can just click on the circle with the left mouse key, drag it around, and let's get on with this picture here that we need to draw. Remember, the control on the keyboard, the left mouse button, and drag will replicate an object. Now another way to do it, I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that. We could highlight this, and we could say Control C, and then we could say Control V. Now I'm going to say Control V, and it's going to paste it somewhere. I'm going to hit Delete. Now if I right click with my mouse key and I say paste, it actually pastes it right where my mouse is. Did you get that? So if I highlight this and I copy, or Control C is the same thing, and then I do a Control V, it's going to paste it sort of in the center of the diagram as it's positioned on left, right, and up and down at the moment. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to check myself on that. I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to hit Control V. Control V still pastes it kind of in the middle over there. I guess it's looking at something about where I was previously on the diagram. But my point is, if I right click over here and now hit the left mouse button, it pastes it over here where I actually did the menu option. Okay, so sometimes you want something pasted in a certain place, and that's when you're going to want to right click on the mouse and then left click, and there you go. Now to line these up, snap to geometry. We see that little orange line there. Also, the grid is very helpful in maintaining proper alignment. I'm going to show you something else later on with distributing shapes and keeping. Sorry about that, I cut the video off. I meant to say that I'm going to show you something later on about how to distribute shapes and maintain alignment, but for now, let's continue copying and pasting these objects. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We need our connector now. So let's hit the connector tool. Remember, when it's highlighted in red, it's ready to glue. Right click on it, straight connector. Remember, you can you can hold the control key down on the keyboard, left click the mouse when you're on top of that object to copy it. Connect this one. Let's do that again. Let's get that item over here. Let's get another connector, and we are well on our way of creating that diagram that we so wanted to replicate from the whiteboard here. So let's get back over here and continue on. Now, highlight the whole thing. Control C copies. Control V or right click the mouse will paste it. You can overlay this to see that it's properly aligned just by using the up and down arrows of your keyboard. You hear me clicking my keyboard. So now you know it's perfectly aligned. Now, Control G will group it. Control H will flip it horizontally. Move it with the left and right arrow on your keyboard. You know it's good to go. Let's come out a little bit. Control Shift U ungroups it. We need a couple more connectors to make this done and done. That's good. That's good. And we need a couple more to go up into the cloud. Now, the way that we have it drawn on here is two straight lines. going up into the cloud. If we use the connector items, we have to be careful. They snap there. But as you get up here, if you get too close to the cloud, they're actually going to go in at angles. So if you get to the center of this object, they're in at angles. And that's okay if it's okay with you. Again, once you connect to something, if you move it around, those lines move with it. It's a beautiful thing. Okay? So if those lines being angled is okay with you, then great. If not, grab it, left click with the mouse button on that red connector item, and look at these different blue connector points. You see those? Click on your object, left click the mouse to grab it. Then you can grab this item and you can move it. So when those light up red, that's where you can connect it. So any object can be connected in the center of the object. That's when the whole object lights up in red red outline. But some objects have separate connector points. Now, if that's okay, having those lines angled, then great. If it's not okay, then you're just going to need to freehand it. Okay, look at that. Snap it there. Now the fact that it was a blue square means that it wasn't connected to anything. Okay, that little blue square there means it's not connected to anything, meaning if I grab this object and move it, well, those don't go with it. And so that might be okay with you. You might be okay with that. Okay? And so let's come out of the diagram. Let's compare it to our intended picture. And there we go. We have successfully created the picture that we wanted to create. All right, so that's about all I wanted to show. Now I can get rid of this thing behind me. All right, so hey, I hope this was helpful. There's going to be a lot more Visio tips and videos that I'm going to do in the future. Again, subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think about this, and I look forward to the next one. Thanks.